Hey guys, I am Mr. Thompson, and I'm going to be your history teacher this semester. Again, I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person as of right now. A little bit of a transitional mix-up. But like I said on the board yesterday, over the next few days, I'm going to leave work for you guys so that you can somewhat stay on schedule. And so I'll have things like worksheets for you. I'll have some things on Schoology for you, some assignments. And I'll post some videos as well so that it's not just work. I'm going to try to post some lecture videos to help to explain a few things over the next few days while you guys are doing this work. And once I get in the classroom and we're face to face, then you'll get to know me a little bit better. We'll spend a day doing introductory stuff, and we'll go over some of my policies, my preferences, my expectations for the classroom, and get to know you just a little bit. And I can't wait to be with you. But as of today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the worksheet packet that you guys did yesterday, and I'm going to explain a few things so that you know what the right answers are, and so that when I do get with you here in a few days, that we're not just having to go back and go over the work that you've been doing. We're going to try to do this on a daily basis to where we're staying caught up. So have your worksheets with you from yesterday. I believe you do have those back, and you should have those completed by now. And so we're going to go over the answers so that you know what the right answer is. And there are a few things that I want to explain as we go through that. Now, let me say this. What we're doing here with this worksheet packet is that this is an introductory to modern world history. Last year, you guys had ancient world history. You talked about all those ancient civilizations going all the way from Macedonia to Egypt to Greece to Rome. And so before we really dive into modern world history, there are a few things that we've got to go back to make sure that you remind yourself on because they're very, very relevant to what we're going to talk about this semester. And so it's really background knowledge that you are going to need before we really dive into the content. So you're not really going to be tested on this packet of worksheets. I have taken this for a grade, and I have graded those already. And just for future reference, when you hand in daily work and I pass it back to you, it has a red check mark on it. That means it's 100. And so any kind of daily work that we do, if there's a red check mark, it means that you get 100 on that assignment. And so this is going to be your first grade for the semester. So again, you should already have those completed, returned back to you, and I'll have those graded. But again, there's some things that we need to cover with these worksheets before we really dive into Chapter 5. All right, so if you will give me a second, I'm going to dim the lights a little bit to make it a little easier to see on the board. Maybe not too much. Maybe that'll be good right there. All right, so once again, have your worksheets handy with you because we are going to go over those. All right, so we're going to start here with this worksheet here, again, looking at ancient Rome and ancient Greece. These are two main civilizations that we're going to focus a lot on here, especially for Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. And what happens with Greece and Rome really plays a big role as to what we call the Renaissance. The Renaissance is going to be the first big movement and chapter that we get to here in Chapter 5. And we have to go back and look at a few things about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. So what we got here is a cause and effect chart. The first 3 points up here are on ancient Greece, and then the next 3 points are about ancient Rome. And again, some background knowledge that we need to know. All right, so for the first cause here, it says that Clisthenes gave the Athenian assembly the final authority to pass laws. What the effect of that is that is not what I wanted to do. Bear with me for just a second here. Now let's try this. There we go. It allowed male citizens to play a central role in politics, creating the foundation for Athenian democracy. And apparently I do have a couple of typos in here as I was trying to get this done fairly quickly. But what this does here is that when Clisthenes gives the Athenian assembly the final authority to pass laws, this really gives you what we now call democracy. I'm sure that you've heard that word a lot, democracy. People talk about that in regards to the government of the United States. Democracy is the foundation principles of the United States government. And what democracy is that it allows regular people and citizens to play an active role in government. So what we see here with this event here with Clisthenes is that we really get the beginning of what we call democracy. Athens, Greece. Athens, Alabama is named after Athens, Greece. And that is an important city because that's where we really first see the main example of what we now call democracy. The next thing on the list here, it says that disputes among city-states led to the Peloponnesian War in 431 BC. The effect of that is that Philip II of Macedonia defeats the weakened Greek city-states in 338 BC. If you don't remember, the Greek Empire was really made up of a lot of city-states. And again, think of city-states kind of like just as a city, like Athens, Decatur, Huntsville, Florence. Those would be like city-states. And the Greek Empire wasn't really like this massive territory to where you had one central government. Instead, you had all these little cities that had their own rulers. And so what we see here in Macedonia is that we really get a discourse here of the different city-states, and that leads to a massive war between the city-states. And so this is going to greatly weaken the whole idea of what we now call the Greek Empire as we look at the Peloponnesian War, which is one of the most important events of ancient Greece. The next thing here, it says that Alexander the Great becomes king of Macedonia and creates an expansive empire. And the result of that is that Greek ideas and culture are spread to the non-Greek world of Southwest Asia and beyond. So what we want to take away here from ancient Greece that we're going to carry on into chapter 5 and 6 and 7 is that, number one, ancient Greece was a foundation of democracy. That is a type of government that is very, very common today. It is a part of everything that we do here in the United States, but was a brand new concept here back in the BC era. And so we look at Athens, Greece as being the birthplace of modern democracy. And then as we go further along, and we get to the end of the list where Alexander the Great creates a big empire, we see the spreading of ideas. And we're going back to the Romans here. And that's what we're referring to with Alexander the Great, in that Greek ideas are spreading across the world. And that's going to bring us into the Renaissance. Okay? But before we get to that, let's go down here and look at the next set of notes. And we're going to look at how we are going to take some things from here from ancient Rome and how that's important. First thing here is that the Roman Republic is set up in 509 BC. The effect of this is that citizens were divided between patricians and plebeians, that the government was split into 2 consuls, 300 senators, 10 tribunes, and general assemblies. What we have here is another type of government that's going to be really, really important as we go further along. With ancient Greece, we get the idea of democracy. Rome is going to take that idea, and they're going to create another type of government called a republic. Now, a republic is different than a democracy, but they are very similar in that people get to vote, and it is very similar to what we have today. As a matter of fact, we are a republic. We're not actually a democracy. We are a republic, and we'll talk more about that as we get into the Revolutionary era, and we talk about the American Revolution. But what we see here in Rome is that, again, they create a type of government that is very common to us today, but that rarely ever existed back during this time period. The idea of a citizen meant that regular people were able to be active in the legislative process. They were able to vote for representatives. They were able to have some kind of influence on policy. And again, that's just a normal part of our everyday life here in the United States. But back during this time period, this was almost unheard of. So outside of Greek democracy, this is the first time that we really see the idea of people having the right as citizens to where they are voting. To where you had 2 different types of citizens: patricians, who were your more wealthier citizens, and the plebeians, who were more of your common folk. The government itself was split into 3 different parts. You had 2 consuls. Think of a consul kind of like as a president. You had 300 senators, just like our senators in our government. 10 tribunes, which were kind of equal with the senators. And then the general assemblies. And the general assemblies were the adult citizens. Now, unlike the United States, not everyone in Rome was allowed to vote. Only Roman citizens. And there was a certain group of people that qualified as a citizen. First of all, you had to be a male. And then you had to had that Roman heritage. And so as long as you were categorized as an adult citizen, then you could actively take part of the legislative process. So again, we see a government here that's really very similar to what we're going to see with the United States. And even when the United States develops this type of government, it is something that's still pretty rare at that point in time. Very common today, but very rare about 300 years ago. And we got that from ancient Rome. The next thing on the list here, the expansion of Rome weakened its republican rule and leads to civil war. And that leads to the ruler known as Octavian gaining control of the state and becoming the first emperor of the Roman Empire. So if you think back to last year, Rome was really divided into two different eras, or at least I call it two eras. You have the Roman Republic, where you have a government just like what we have, but then you have the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire was not as democratic as the Roman Republic. But what we see here, and where this is going to be important, is that as Rome becomes an empire, it means that they're going to spread all across southern Europe into Western Asia. And if I had a good map with me, then I would show you exactly all the territories that this would encompass. But the Roman Empire is going to end up being one of the largest empires in all of history. And there's a reason that the Roman Empire is so important to history, because it affects so many things for so many years. And so when Octavian gains control of Rome, then we're going to see the beginning of it. It's going to be the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. And from that, just like we saw with the Greeks, you're going to get the spreading of Roman ideas, of things like the Roman law, Roman government, and that's going to spread to all over Europe and Asia. Last thing here on the list says Christianity attracts many followers and quickly spreads throughout the Roman Empire. As we get into about the 200s or 300s, then we're going to see the rise of, it says Christianity here, I'm going to call it Catholicism because that's what it is, the development of the Roman Catholic Church. You see, early Christians were very heavily persecuted against in the Roman Empire for many, many years. Well, this is important because what it does is that for the first time, Rome really begins to accept this idea of Christianity or Catholicism. And not only that, but when it becomes the primary religion of Rome, it means that that religion begins to spread all across the empire. And since the Roman Empire is so huge and so massive, it means that Christianity, or in this case Catholicism, is spreading as well. And that is really, really important as we begin the Renaissance in chapter 5. Okay, the result here is that Theodosius the Great makes Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. And when you have what's called the official religion of a country or an empire, most of the time it means that that's the only religion that you are allowed to worship. And that's pretty much going to be the case here. And so this idea of Christianity, or again, what we call today as Catholicism, begins to spread all across the Roman Empire. Spreads all across Europe and into Asia. And again, that's really going to set up where we begin in chapter 5 with the Renaissance. And as we talked about, what's called the Protestant Reformation. So a few things here about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. With ancient Greece, the birthplace of democracy, the idea of city-states. With Rome, you have the Roman Republic, which is what our government is based off of. It's really not up here, but Rome was also known for its legal system. Our legal system is also based off of the Roman legal system. You have the expansion of the Roman Empire, which encompasses so much territory, pretty much all of Europe, the western portion of Asia, and even the northern tip of Africa. And that's going to include the spreading of Christianity. And as we begin chapter 5 and talk about the Renaissance, then we're going to go back and talk about how ancient Rome and ancient Greece really play an important part of those things right there. Okay? All right, so stay tuned. I'm going to have another video here in just a moment that's going to go over the second page of the worksheet.